you step into a world where time itself keeps secrets. Some truths are buried by sand and stone. Some were meant never to be found. The air smells of dust and old metal, the kind that clings to your clothes and skin. A faint hum seems to echo in your chest, though the corridor you stand in is silent. Behind you, the daylight feels far away. Ahead, only darkness broken by the sharp cone of your flashlight pulls you forward. You were told this expedition was routine, a survey, a harmless check of places tourists never see. But as you descend, you realize this is different. This is personal. The stone under your boots has felt no footsteps for thousands of years, and yet it feels like it remembers you. Tonight you will wander into the Grand Pyramid's hidden chambers, where scanners revealed a hollow space that should not exist. You will stand beside the sealed tomb of Tutankhamun, where a whisper once doomed an entire team. You will brush your fingers over the impossible gates of Pumapunku, where stones fit like machine-cut metal. And you will listen to the rooms that swallow sound in Egypt, where your own heartbeat is the only reply. Take a deep breath. From this moment on, you are not a visitor. You are part of the mystery. The hidden void. Great Pyramid of Giza, they told you it was just a simple inspection. A muon scan had revealed a hidden void high above the Grand Gallery, a black space no human had ever entered. You are the one sent to verify the discovery. The guide's voice is calm at first, echoing behind you, but each step down the narrow stone passage swallows that voice until you are alone with your own breath. The limestone walls are close and cold against your shoulders, the air dry but tinged with a metallic scent that sticks to the back of your throat. Your headlamp beam glances off blocks that weigh dozens of tons, each fitted so perfectly that a sheet of paper could barely slip between them. Dust coats your boots in a soft crunch with every step. Ahead, the Grand Gallery yawns like a ribcage, corbelled walls rising steeply into shadow. Somewhere above that ceiling, scanners saw a hollow shape, a chamber that should not exist. You climb the wooden scaffold and pause. A hairline crack traces across one of the ceiling stones. Tilting your light, you catch the edge of a sharp angle, unnatural, precise. You press your face closer and see a slit of absolute blackness, a place where light dies. You rap your knuckles against the block. There is no echo, no hollow thump. It feels as if the stone swallowed the sound whole, and beyond it, an endless emptiness waits. Your lamp flickers. A faint draft brushes your neck, though there is no wind here. The needle of your compass spins lazily, refusing to settle. You shift to step back and almost fall, because the ladder you climbed is gone. The gallery below is smooth and unbroken. No scaffold, no sign of the team outside. Your heart pounds as the walls seem to lean closer. A soft scraping slides along the edge of your hearing stone against stone from the hidden void above. Then it ends. You are outside under the desert sky with the weight of the pyramid behind you. The team swears you never vanished. The ladder, they insist, never moved. In your hands, the scan data glows on a tablet. The Grand Void stretches nearly 30 meters, a space long and silent above the Grand Gallery. 19th century diagrams show nothing like it, except for one faint note in an explorer's journal. A place in the ceiling that drinks sound. Some engineers call it a stress relief cavity, a clever weight-saving trick. Others suspect a hidden transport route for stones too massive to lift any other way. A few imagine a ritual chamber designed to resonate with frequencies beyond human hearing. And there are whispers, always whispers, that the void predates the pyramid itself, a remnant of something we were never meant to find. That night, as you rest in your hotel, your phone vibrates once on the bedside table. No caller ID. The screen glows with 3 words only: do not open. The curse whisper tomb of Tutankhamun. You descend the stone steps into the Valley of the Kings, your boots scuffing against smooth limestone worn by a century of footsteps. Tonight's task is supposed to be simple document. A handful of artifacts in Tutankhamun's tomb that were never fully digitized. The local curator walks ahead of you, his flashlight beam cutting across the darkness, but with each step the world narrows to the sound of your breathing and the smell of dust and something sweeter like old resin. The corridor opens into the burial chamber and you pause. It is smaller than you expected, yet every surface glitters with history, gilded shrines, carved furniture, and painted walls depicting the boy king's journey to the afterlife. Dust swirls in your light like powdered gold. Your gloved fingers hover over an amulet lying alone on a wooden tray. It is cracked, its lines worn by time, but when you brush a fingertip along the surface, the faint smell of pine sap rises fresh, as if the resin had been placed there yesterday. The hieroglyphs along its side catch the light and seem to glimmer for a heartbeat. A whisper rides the air. You freeze, the sound curling against your ear, too soft to be words, but too deliberate to be imagination. The LED beam flickers, your chest tightens. Behind you, the curator's light disappears as if swallowed by the walls. You hear it again, a breathy exhale, followed by a faint tap like knuckles brushing the lid of a coffin. The smell of resin thickens. The air feels heavy, pressing in on your ribs. Then you blink, and you are outside, standing at the tomb's entrance under a cold desert moon. A guard says you never left the group. The curator looks puzzled when you ask if he heard the whisper. Nothing, he says. But your glove still carries a shimmer of golden dust. Later in your hotel room, you scroll through Carter's original journals. Notes about sudden fevers, accidents, and deaths leap out in neat Victorian handwriting. Statisticians called it coincidence. Microbiologists spoke of hidden mold or ancient toxins trapped in stone. Yet the pattern is too neat, the timing too sharp. You feel the weight of unseen eyes even now. Theories swirl in your mind. Skeptics argue the curse is a story born from fear and media frenzy. Scientists suggest deadly spores or arsenic compounds that would sicken anyone who lingered too long in the sealed air. Others whisper about rituals meant to guard the pharaoh, layers of protection that do not end with death. And the boldest voices claim the tomb itself remembers holding an echo of intent that answers every intrusion. You finally drift into a restless sleep. In the hush of your hotel room, the sound returns. A whisper close to your ear, curling through the dark. It is followed by the soft scrape of something heavy and golden, sliding slowly across stone. Stone gates of thunder, puma, pumku. The wind on the Bolivian Altiplano cuts through your jacket like a knife, thin and cold, at nearly 13,000 feet. You have come here to assist a structural engineer in scanning the ancient blocks of Pumapunku, a place archaeologists describe as a temple, though no one truly knows its purpose. The plateau is barren, except for the scattered stones, massive and silent, sprawled across the grass like the ribs of a long-dead creature. Your boots crunch against gravel as the mountains loom in the distant snow, catching the last light of day. The engineer kneels beside a stone shaped like a giant H, its surface dark and rough, yet the corners are razor sharp. You run your gloved hand along the groove, tracing a perfect 90-degree angle. Not a fraction of error. Another block lies nearby, riddled with slots and notches that look like they could interlock with unseen pieces. These andesite blocks weigh tons, yet some fit together so tightly that you can't slip a knife blade into the seams. You measure, photograph, and check the LiDAR scan on your tablet. Every line is deliberate. Every cut defies the tools you thought the pre-Incan builders had. As the sun dips lower, a low vibration seems to roll through the ground, subtle at first, then strong enough to rattle the stones around you. A shadow moves along the H-shaped block as the wind suddenly dies. You hear a deep rumble, like distant thunder, but the sky above is clear. Then you see it, two broken blocks lying apart for centuries now, rocking imperceptibly toward each other. Dust lifts as if the earth exhales. The engineer swears softly and steps back. You feel your legs tremble as the blocks settle again, aligning in a way that seems almost intentional. By the time you return to the makeshift camp, your hands are shaking. The LiDAR scan reveals something unexpected. The broken stones, when digitally reassembled, form a perfect frame, almost like a doorway. Local legends speak of gods walking through the gates of thunder, and the old Aymara guides claim lightning once struck here without storms. Historical records note Tiwanaku nearby, but no mention of tools that could cut and move these blocks with machine-like precision. You realize no one can explain how stones like this were carved, transported, or aligned over 1,000 years ago. Theories circle in your mind. Some researchers insist the blocks were made using geopolymers, an early form of cast stone poured into molds. Others imagine a ceremonial or astronomical function, where the structures channeled sound or light in ways now lost. Fringe voices whisper that Pumapunku predates any known civilization, evidence of a culture erased by time, or something not entirely human. Standing among the stones, you can almost believe them. That night, alone in your tent, the wind returns. It rattles the canvas and carries a low, rolling tone. It is not thunder. It is a sound you cannot name, vibrating in your chest, as if the gates of stone are calling you back. The clock of the drowned Antikythera Mechanism. The air smells of salt and metal as you step into the small conservation lab near the harbor of Athens. On the table lies the reason you came, a fragment of corroded bronze green with centuries of oxidation, its jagged edges betraying the violence of time and sea. This is a section of the Antikythera Mechanism, the so-called world's first computer pulled from the depths off a Greek island more than 100 years ago. You were invited to witness a new CT scan to help analyze pieces that have rarely been touched since they were lifted from the ocean floor. The room is dim, filled with the soft hum of machines and the rhythmic crash of waves outside. You lean over the relic, its teeth barely visible beneath the crust. When the X-ray image blooms on the monitor, you hold your breath. Tiny gears too precise for their age mesh together in a pattern that seems to whisper purpose. A faint engraving emerges, a series of tiny Greek letters almost erased. One gear shows evidence of rotation calculated to predict an eclipse, but another points to a date that does not appear in any surviving records. A sudden vibration rattles the table. You glance up, but the machines are steady. In the corner of your vision, water drips onto the floor, though the lab is dry. The bronze fragment seems to pulse under the light, its broken teeth aligning for a fraction of a second, as if completing the unseen whole. You hear a faint ticking, rhythmic and wet, like a clock submerged beneath the waves. Then just as quickly it stops. Later in the archive, you trace the mechanism's story, discovered in 1901 by sponge divers near the island of Antikythera, dated to over 2,000 years old. Its complexity unmatched until medieval clockwork. Scholars believe it tracked the movements of the sun, moon, and planets, maybe predicting eclipses. But no one can explain why one of the reconstructed cycles points to an astronomical event that leaves no mark in recorded history. An erased ritual. A calendar for something never meant to be observed. Theories swarm in your head. Traditional archaeologists call it a scientific instrument, a teaching tool, or a portable orrery. Others think it was a ceremonial device used in temples to synchronize festivals with celestial events. And some whisper of purposes never written down, navigation across seas now forgotten, or messages to gods through the alignment of heaven and earth. One fringe scholar even suggested it may have been a fragment of a larger array, a machine meant to be assembled only once, then lost to the sea on purpose. That night, the sound of the waves outside your window feels different, slow, measured like the swing of a pendulum. When you close your eyes, you see gears turning in darkness, inner dripping off bronze, and a soft pulse counting time that no longer belongs to human history. Whispers in the stone. The hypogeum of Hal Saflieni. You descend the narrow spiral staircase into the depths of Hal Saflieni, the ancient underground temple in Malta that predates the pyramids. The air grows cooler, with every step carrying the earthy scent of limestone and still water. Your guide's flashlight skims over walls carved by hands that vanished more than 5,000 years ago. You have come to assist an acoustic study to test the legendary oracle room, where sound is said to behave in ways that defy expectation. The chamber is small and dim, its walls curved like the inside of a great shell. Your boots click softly on the stone floor as you step to the center. The guide nods for you to begin. You clear your throat and speak a single word, and the sound blooms around you low and resonant. It is not an echo in the normal sense. It rolls and hums, pressing into your chest, as if the stone itself is vibrating in response. The frequency meter in your hand wavers at 110 hertz, exactly as the researchers predicted. You speak again, and the room seems to answer the air itself alive. Then you hear another voice. It is faint low, curling beneath your own tone. Your guide tilts his head, frowning because he hasn't said a word. The chamber trembles almost imperceptibly, and a soft, rhythmic thumping rises from the lower level, where the tunnels wind into darkness. The lights flicker. For a heartbeat, you feel as if the room itself is breathing, exhaling cool air across your face. When the sensation passes, your skin is cold and your hands are slick with sweat. Back in the entry hall, you check the recording. Your voice is there, deep and resonant, but layered beneath it is a second tone too regular to be an artifact. It rises and falls like a chant, its origin impossible to locate. Historical accounts mention burial remains, carved spirals, and crude figurines found in the lower chambers, but none explain the acoustic properties that make the oracle room so unique. Some notes describe visitors feeling disoriented, even leaving in panic after a few minutes. Theories compete in your mind. Some researchers believe the temple was designed as a ritual space where sound could induce trance-like states or reinforce group ceremonies. Others suggest a primitive form of sonic therapy, leveraging resonances that affect human physiology. Fringe voices claim the hypogeum was a bridge between worlds, its tones opening a passage for communication or for something else to answer. Listening to the recording in the safety of the lab, you are no longer sure which theory is the least frightening. That night, long after you leave the underground halls, you lie in bed and close your eyes. In the quiet of your hotel room, your pulse slows, and for a moment, you think you hear it again, the low hum, the second voice riding just below the edge of your hearing. It seems to say your name stretched and distorted, carried on stone and time. Lines that see Nazca, Peru. The sun is merciless over the Nazca Desert, and the wind is a dry whisper in your ears as you strap into the small survey plane. The mission is simple: assist a LiDAR scan of the endless geoglyphs carved into the barren plateau below. But as the aircraft lifts off, the desert opens like a canvas of secrets. Lines stretch to the horizon perfectly straight, some spanning miles, while animals and shapes emerge in white against the rust-red soil. The air is thin here, making each breath sharp, and the hum of the propellers vibrates in your bones. Your pilot tilts the plane to give you a better view. From this angle, the giant figures make sense: a hummingbird, a monkey, a spider. Then your LiDAR tablet pings softly. A new shape begins to form on the digital map, faint and half erased by centuries of wind. You lean toward the window and see it, a long arrow barely visible pointing toward a ridge. Only at this hour, under this angle of sunlight, does the shape exist at all. You snap photographs, your pulse quickening. The arrow seems to align perfectly with a distant peak, its tip vanishing into the desert heat. The radio crackles with static. The pilot frowns, tapping the headset, but the interference only grows louder. Suddenly, the compass needle twitches. The plane veers slightly, nose drifting in the exact direction of the hidden arrow below. You grip the seat, heart pounding. For a moment, the desert feels alive, like an eye staring back at you from a face carved in sand. Then, the static dies. The plane straightens. The arrow disappears back into the earth, as if it never wanted to be seen. Back on the ground, your shoes crunch against the parched soil. Standing in the middle of one of the massive lines, you feel a strange dissonance here. It's just dirt and stones, meaningless from eye level. But overhead it becomes a message written across the land. Archaeologists have argued for decades about the purpose of these geoglyphs, ceremonial paths for walking astronomical calendars, or offerings to gods who could only see from the sky. None explain the perfect geometry or why so many converge toward invisible horizons. Theories churn in your mind. Some scientists believe the lines mark underground water sources, maps of survival in an unforgiving desert. Others see them as ritual pathways drawn for gods to watch, as people walked them in silent procession. And on the edges of academia, there are whispers of messages meant for beings who could see from above, beings who might still be watching. That night, lying in a quiet motel room, the desert wind whips against the window. You close your eyes, but the arrow remains vivid, pointing towards something beyond the hills. In the darkness behind your eyelids, it begins to glow, as if the land itself remembers you saw it and is waiting for you to follow. The first temple without a city, Göbekli Tepe, Turkey. The morning mist clings to the hills of southeastern Turkey as you hike up the low mound of Göbekli Tepe, your boots sinking into the soft soil. The dig site is quiet, except for the soft chatter of distant workers and the clink of trowels on stone. You are here to assist in documenting a newly uncovered T-shaped pillar, one of dozens that form perfect circles, buried for more than 11,000 years. No city surrounds this place, no trace of domestic life, only a temple on a hill that someone built, used, and then buried on purpose. You step under the protective canopy that shields the excavation from the harsh sun. Around you, the great stone pillars rise like frozen sentinels, some carved with foxes, snakes, and vultures, their forms worn, yet still alive in the light. A fine dust hangs in the air, catching the golden morning glow. As you run your hand along the rough limestone of the new pillar, you feel the grooves of an unfinished carving, 3 parallel lines that end abruptly, as if whoever started them stopped in mid-stroke. The ground shifts slightly beneath your feet, and a faint hollow sound echoes. The archaeologist beside you frowns. A small probe inserted into the soil confirms that there is another circle of stones below, hidden and unrecorded. You crouch to peer into the shallow hole where the probe went in, and for a moment you swear you see darkness moving like a shadow sliding beneath the earth. Then the wind picks up, carrying the dry smell of earth and something faintly metallic, and the feeling passes. Later, as the team reviews the ground-penetrating radar scans, a pattern emerges: more circles descending like layers of time, older than the one above. No houses, no tools for daily life, just temple after temple abandoned and buried. You flip through the site notes, reading theories that challenge everything you knew about history. Temples before cities, ritual before agriculture. The carvings show animals that once roamed this land, long extinct, frozen in a story no one can read. Theories whisper in your head. Some archaeologists believe Göbekli Tepe was a ceremonial center for nomadic hunter-gatherers, a place of seasonal gathering and ritual. Others suggest it was a site of initiation or death rites, its circles align with stars that rose differently in the ancient sky. And in the quiet between facts, a darker idea lurks that something here demanded remembrance, that the hill itself is a monument to an encounter long erased from human memory. That night in your tent on the edge of the silent mound, sleep comes slowly. You dream of standing in the center of the stone circle, the pillars towering over you. The foxes and vultures carved in limestone seem to shift in the moonlight, and from deep underground comes a soft, steady drumming like a heartbeat older than any city on earth. The disc that speaks in spirals, Phaistos Disc. The museum in Crete is quiet this morning, the soft echo of footsteps following you into the secure archives. You have been invited to examine one of the most enigmatic artifacts ever uncovered, the Phaistos Disc. Under the dim light of the conservation room, it rests on a velvet pad, no larger than the span of your hand, its surface a warm terracotta brown. The spiral of stamped symbols winds inward like a path designed to pull your eyes toward its center. You lean closer. The symbols, men in plumed helmets, birds, fish flowers, are arranged in perfect rhythm, each pressed into the clay with a small die over 3,000 years ago. You lift the magnifier and notice a hairline crack running through one section. Oddly, two symbols cross the fracture seamlessly, as though the impressions were made after the disc had already split and fused again. Your gloved finger traces the groove, and for a heartbeat you feel a faint warmth beneath the clay. The room feels tighter. A whisper of air brushes the back of your neck. You glance around, no one else is here. When you look back at the disc, the spiral seems subtly different. The order of symbols shifted in some way you cannot name. You blink and it returns to normal, leaving a pulse of unease in your chest. The recording device on the table picks up a faint scratching sound, like someone tracing the spiral with a fingernail. Later in the archive office, you search through decades of scholarship. Some experts argue the disc is a form of writing a language still unknown. Others believe it was a ceremonial object, perhaps a hymn pressed into clay. No other artifact has ever been found with the same script. Theories range from the plausible to the absurd, some even claiming it is a hoax created in antiquity itself. Yet, the more you stare at the spiral, the more it feels intentional, like it carries rhythm, a cadence you almost hear rather than read. Theories flicker through your mind. It could be a ritual song frozen in clay, a memory device for oral chants performed in the dark of a temple. Some propose it was a game or divination tool, the spiral dictating fate as a finger follows its path. A few whisper that it could be a message meant to be read aloud, its true meaning unlocked only by sound, not sight, a script that speaks when the spiral is traced in the correct order. That night, alone in your hotel room, you close your eyes and see the spiral winding inward. In the silence, a voice begins to hum, soft and low, following the same path your finger traced. You wake with a start, heart hammering, the pattern still glowing behind your eyelids. It feels as if the disc is not meant to be read by your eyes at all, but by something listening inside your mind. The speaking bird, Saqqara bird. The storage room of the Egyptian Museum smells of dust and cedar as you step between rows of shelves stacked with relics rarely seen by the public. Your assignment tonight is to assist with the aerodynamic testing of an artifact known only by its catalog number. Yet, among researchers it carries a more evocative name, the Saqqara bird. A small carved figure of sycamore wood, it resembles a bird with a straight tail like a primitive model airplane. Its wingspan is less than a foot, but its design has puzzled scholars for decades. You lift it carefully under the lamp. Time has darkened the wood to a deep brown, but the edges remain smooth, worn by air or by hands long gone. You notice a subtle asymmetry. The tail is not flat but slightly tilted, as if it were meant to generate lift. In the quiet room, your footsteps echo softly on the stone floor. You set the model into the small wind tunnel the team has assembled. As the fan begins to spin, A current of air flows over the wooden wings. At first, nothing happens. Then the model shudders, rocks, and lifts just a fraction of an inch, enough to hover for a heartbeat before settling back. A thrill runs through you. The curator nods silently, but his eyes hold unease. The model is inanimate, yet for that brief moment it seemed alive. The lights flicker, and a faint fluttering sound rises behind you. You turn sharply. There is no one else in the room, but in the corner the shadows shift like wings unfolding. The wooden bird vibrates on the stand, moving slightly against the current even after the fan powers down. You step back, pulse quickening. Later in the library, you pore over excavation notes. The Saqqara bird was discovered in 1898 in a tomb near the Pyramid of Djoser, its purpose never explained. Some scholars dismiss it as a child's toy or a weather vane. Others suggest it was a symbolic offering, a vessel for the soul to fly to the afterlife, under the protection of Horus. And a few aerodynamics experts have tested replicas, claiming its shape allows it to glide short distances, an echo of flight from a civilization that should not have known how to achieve it. Theories swirl in your head. Was it a ceremonial object meant to carry prayers skyward? A fragment of forgotten engineering hinting that the ancients knew more about air than we imagine? Or was it a messenger, a symbolic bird that once truly flew in the desert wind, carrying secrets between earth and sky? That night in your hotel, you close your eyes and hear it, a soft flutter of wings, not in the room, but in the air behind your thoughts. When you turn on the light, the sound stops, but a single speck of sawdust lies on your pillow, as if a wooden feather had brushed past while you slept. The city of masks, Sangsingdui, China. The humid air of Sichuan clings to your skin as you step onto the dig site of Sangsingdui. The sun is low, painting the fields in a dusty gold, and ahead of you tents and cranes rise over a shallow pit that looks like an open wound in the earth. You have been invited to witness the excavation of a new sacrificial pit, one of the legendary discoveries that stunned archaeologists with its surreal artifacts. This place has been called the City of Masks, and the title feels literal when you peer into the trench. Your flashlight beam catches on bronze and gold faces, elongated and alien with eyes that bulge unnaturally. A massive mask, its pupils inlaid with black stone, stares upward as if it has been waiting for you. The edges of its mouth are turned ever so slightly, not smiling, but not entirely still. Around it lie shattered elephant tusks, fragments of jade and charred soil. As if the pit itself had once been on fire, the air is heavy with the smell of wet clay and something faintly metallic. You crouch closer to photograph the mask. Your fingers hover over the soil, and a faint vibration trembles through your glove. For a moment it feels like the earth is breathing. The pit is silent except for the distant buzz of cicadas. Then a whisper of movement catches your eye in the reflection on the mask's polished surface. A shape shifts behind you. You spin around, but the trench is empty. When you turn back, the mask seems to be staring directly into your eyes. Later, back at the temporary lab, you help analyze a scoop of dark ash from the pit. Under the microscope, the grains shimmer strangely, and a heat sensor shows residual warmth, though the material has been buried for over 3,000 years. Notes from earlier digs describe similar findings. Gold masks, ritual bronzes, elephant tusks deliberately broken, and earth blackened by extreme heat. The ancient Shu civilization that made them left no written records, and the site seems to have been abandoned, suddenly leaving behind only these silent faces. Theories surface as you try to make sense of it. Some scholars believe the pits were ceremonial offerings, a mass ritual to a sky god or ancestor spirit. The destruction of valuable objects meant to release their power. Others point to environmental catastrophe floods, earthquakes that force the people to abandon the cities and bury their sacred icons in haste. And among fringe voices, there is a murmur that the masks were not merely symbolic, that they were imitations of something the Shu once saw, faces that were never entirely human. That night in your hotel room, you leave the mask's photograph face down on the desk. But in the stillness before sleep, you feel the same weight of its gaze pressing against the back of your eyelids. In the distance, a single cicada cries, and in its stuttering rhythm, you hear the faint scrape of metal against stone, as though a mask is shifting in the dark, turning to face you once more. The River Without Words, Indus Valley Script. The evening air in the research lab is warm and still filled with the faint scent of old stone and paper. Before you lies a tray of soapstone seals from the ruins of Mohenjo-Daro, each no bigger than the palm of your hand. They are gray and smooth, engraved with tiny symbols, and the image of a horned bull, a short line of markings beneath it. You were invited to assist with an experimental AI model, trained to analyze these enigmatic signs, to search for patterns where human linguists have struggled for a century. You lift one seal under the lamp. The grooves are shallow but precise, as if a fine metal tool once carved them. Each line seems purposeful, but the sequence is short. Only 5 or 6 symbols, never enough to reveal a grammar. When you place the seal on the scanner, the computer hums softly. A progress bar crawls across the screen as the software begins to parse the curves and angles of a script that has defied every attempt at reading. Then the monitor flickers. For an instant, a line of characters appears glowing white against black symbols that are not part of the Indus catalog. They seem to bend and twist as you watch, forming shapes that feel like they want to be words. A chill creeps up your arms. You blink and the symbols vanish, leaving only the raw scan. No one else in the lab seems to notice. Later, as the analysis completes, you review the AI's results. The model found repeating clusters rhythms that echo the logic of a real language. Yet, without a bilingual text, it is meaningless. An entire river of words flowing past with no bridge to cross. Scholars argue endlessly. Some believe the Indus symbols are a true writing system, compressed and efficient. Others claim they are mere religious emblems or trademarks never meant to capture speech. But tonight, staring at the glowing screen, you feel certain the marks are speaking, just not to anyone who can answer. Theories surface in your mind like fish breaking the water. Perhaps the seals were keys to rituals, their meaning known only to a chosen few. Perhaps the language encoded in their symbols has no living relatives, severed completely from human memory. And perhaps the words were never meant for people at all, but for something else. Something that could read them long after the Indus cities fell silent. That night, as the lab empties and you walk along the riverbank near the ruins, the air smells of mud and silt. The Indus River flows dark and wide under the moon, silent except for the soft lap of water. You pause, glancing down at your reflection. For just a second, you think you see lines rippling across the surface, 5 or 6 tiny shapes, glowing faintly, sliding past like a seal pressed against the current. Then the water swallows them, and the river continues to speak in a language you still cannot understand. The Mercury Tunnel, Teotihuacan, Mexico. The tunnel mouth yawns beneath the Temple of the Feathered Serpent, a jagged hole framed by ancient stones. You crouch low and step inside, following the small robot rover that leads the way with a pale beam of light. The air is damp and metallic, heavy with the scent of earth that has not been touched for centuries. Each footstep echoes in the confined darkness, and your own breathing feels too loud, as if the tunnel itself is listening. The walls are rough and wet, but occasionally they sparkle. When you shine your flashlight, the stone glitters with tiny flecks of pyrite fool's gold embedded in the rock, like fragments of a man-made night sky. The floor dips slightly, and a shallow pool reflects the light in rippling silver. You crouch to examine it, and the smell confirms what the instruments later prove: liquid mercury, tiny beads glinting in the torchlight. It pools in narrow channels carved deliberately into the floor. Someone wanted this place to shine in the dark, like a mirror of the heavens below the earth. The robot halts ahead of you, its camera fixed on a niche in the wall. The feed on your tablet flickers and clears to reveal a cluster of objects, small stone spheres, some covered in pyrite, arranged as if to mimic a constellation. You step closer, and the air temperature seems to drop. For a moment, your reflection appears in the mercury pool, but it does not move with you. Its head tilts the wrong way, and the face is not entirely your own. You retreat a step, heart pounding. The reflection blurs and reforms, now only a smear of silver. Behind you, a faint sound rises, a wet drip, rhythmic, echoing like the ticking of a distant clock. You glance toward the entrance, but the light is gone, swallowed by a bend in the tunnel. The air feels thicker with each breath, like you are inhaling history itself. Later in the analysis tent, you scroll through the rover's data. The tunnel beneath Teotihuacan is longer than expected, lined with pockets of mercury and reflective pyrite. Archaeologists believe the city's builders used this hidden path for ritual, a symbolic journey through the underworld, where stars shone in darkness and silver rivers guided the dead to rebirth. But the artifacts seem almost too deliberate, the alignments too precise, as if the builders wanted something below the earth to see their work as clearly as the living once saw the sky. Theories drift in your thoughts. Perhaps this was a ceremonial theater, a mirror of the cosmos for rituals of kings and priests. Some suggest that the mercury symbolized rivers to the afterlife, its toxicity a deliberate barrier to the unworthy. And there are whispers, always whispers, that the tunnel was a message to the sky itself, a reflection meant to be noticed from somewhere beyond the human world. That night in your hotel room, you wash your hands again and again, but a faint silvery sheen lingers under your fingernails. When you close your eyes, the drip of mercury returns steady and patient, counting down to something you cannot name. The Rongorongo Echo. Easter Island. The Pacific wind whips against your jacket as you step onto the small wooden deck of the field station on Easter Island. Behind you, the ocean stretches endless and cold, and before you lies the quiet land of the Moai, those solemn stone heads half buried in grass. You have come for something smaller, stranger, and far older than the statues, a weathered wooden tablet carved with the mysterious script known as Rongorongo. Few have touched these artifacts, and even fewer have tried to read them aloud. Tonight you will be among those few. Inside the dim research hut, the air smells of salt and old timber. You sit before the tablet under a single lamp. Its surface is dark and smooth, etched with a flowing line of glyphs, birdmen, fishhooks, geometric swirls. The script runs in a peculiar pattern, reverse boustrophedon, forcing your eyes to move back and forth, as if following a silent chant. You start the audio recorder and carefully begin to speak the symbols in a neutral tone, syllables invented for the study. At first, your voice is the only sound, a soft cadence filling the room. Then the walls seem to answer. A faint echo returns, delayed just enough to feel wrong, as though someone else is reading with you from a distance. The recorder's levels twitch unexpectedly, registering a second voice your ears can barely catch. A chill snakes down your spine. You pause, and the echo fades into the wind outside. When you review the playback, the second voice is clearer, a low, rhythmic murmur under your own, repeating your invented syllables with uncanny precision. You glance at the tablet, and the glyphs seem to ripple in the lamplight, as if shifting under your gaze. Scholars have debated the nature of Rongorongo for generations. Some believe it is a true script, capturing the lost language of the island's ancestors. Others think it is a mnemonic device, a guide for oral chants or rituals that no longer exist. None can explain why the tradition vanished so suddenly, leaving only these silent boards. Theories spiral in your thoughts. Perhaps the chants were meant to invoke ancestral memory, each glyph unlocking a rhythm that only works when spoken aloud. Perhaps the script is an astronomical calendar tracking stars and moons in a code long forgotten. And there are always the whispers, the idea that the boards were messages not to other people, but to the island itself, or to whatever listened beyond the horizon. That night, as the wind howls through the field station, you try to sleep. The ocean's roar is constant, yet beneath it you hear a soft pattern, your own syllables repeating, blending with the waves. You sit up, heart pounding, and the sound ceases. In the corner of the room, the tablet leans where you left it, and in the dim light, one of the carved birdmen seems to tilt its head, listening. The spheres of silence. Costa Rica stone spheres, the air in the abandoned plantation is heavy with the scent of damp earth and distant rain. You step carefully through the tall grass, following the faint outline of a path toward a clearing your GPS has marked. There in the middle of the field, you see them stone spheres scattered as if a giant had dropped marbles from the sky. Some are small enough to cradle in your arms. Others are taller than your chest, perfectly round, smooth despite the centuries. You approach the largest sphere and place your hand on its surface. The stone is cool and slightly damp, and the jungle hums quietly around you. A tape measure confirms what your eyes already suspect: the curve is flawless, the geometry almost impossible without modern tools. You step back to photograph the arrangement. 4 spheres form a line almost perfect, pointing toward the edge of the forest. Beyond that, the sky breaks open to a strip of horizon. It feels deliberate, like the land itself has been marked. As you move to measure the second sphere, the forest quiets. The cicadas and birds fall silent, leaving only the soft rustle of leaves. Then you hear it, a faint hum, not from the wind or your own equipment, but from the ground. Kneeling, you place your palm flat on the soil between the stones. A subtle vibration pulses beneath your hand, steady and slow, like a buried heartbeat. You glance around, but nothing moves. Later, back at the local archive, you read the notes of early excavations. Archaeologists found these spheres across the Diquís Delta, carved from granodiorite and gabbro, some weighing over 15 tons. Their purpose has never been proven. Many were moved or destroyed by plantation work, but a few remained aligned, as if forming celestial markers or pathways. Local legends whisper that the spheres belong to the gods, tools for shaping the land or guarding sacred sites. Theories emerge as you stare at the photographs on your tablet. Some scholars believe the spheres marked important settlements or burial grounds, silent symbols of authority. Others think they were part of a vast astronomical system, aligning with solstices and horizons now overgrown by forest. And then there are the ideas no one puts in journals, that the stones were meant to resonate, to hum with the earth itself, their perfect symmetry tuning to something deep and unseen. That night you camp near the clearing, unable to shake the sense of being watched. The jungle around you is alive with night sounds, but beneath it the hum returns soft and rhythmic, traveling up through the soil into your spine. When you close your eyes, the spheres seem to glow behind your eyelids, perfectly round, perfectly silent, yet carrying a sound you can feel more than hear. In the darkness, you realize you are lying in a pattern, as if the spheres have arranged themselves around you, and for a fleeting moment, you wonder if the earth has been listening all along. The Drowned Stairs, Yonaguni, Japan. The sea off Yonaguni is cold and deceptively calm as you lean over the side of the dive boat, adjusting your mask. The sun is low, streaking the water with gold, but the dive master's voice is steady. As he repeats the warning, the current here is strong and the stairs are waiting. You roll backward into the ocean and the world shifts into muffled blue. Bubbles rise past your ears as you descend, and the seafloor takes shape below a massive staircase carved into stone, each step as sharp and deliberate as if made by human hands. You hover above the first landing, heart pounding. The steps are too regular, too straight for nature, yet the surface is rough, scoured by time and current. A sandy slope drops into a dark crevice to your left, while to your right a wall rises like a terrace. You glide along it, hand brushing the stone. For a moment your fingers trace what feels like a joint, a perfect corner, as if one block had been cut to fit against another. Your dive light flickers as silt drifts past your visor. The current pulls and you grip the edge of a step to steady yourself. Something catches your eye in the distance. A shadow slides along the lower stair, moving against the flow of water. You blink behind your mask, trying to focus. It could be a fish, a trick of light, but it feels wrong too, straight too fast. The hair on your neck prickles even underwater. When you resurface the dive, Master shrugs off your questions. He's heard them all. Some say the Yonaguni Monument is just a natural formation, sandstone fractured and shaped by ocean currents. Others insist it's the ruins of a sunken city, evidence of a civilization older than any known in Japan. A few divers claim to have seen carvings, faces, animals, or glyphs, though the photos are always inconclusive. Back on shore, you scroll through decades of research. Geological reports argue for natural processes pointing to the region's tectonic activity. Yet side-scan sonar reveals angles too precise to dismiss entirely. Independent divers have mapped what looks like road terraces and even a small archway, all now claimed by the sea. A pattern emerges, but it refuses to resolve into certainty. Theories swirl in your mind as the island wind howls over the cliffs. Perhaps Yonaguni was a ceremonial center swallowed by rising seas at the end of the last ice age. Perhaps it was never human at all, just stone pretending to be memory. And some whisper that the stairs are a marker, not a ruin, a sign meant to be visible only from below to something that once watched from the deep. That night in your hotel overlooking the Black Ocean, you dream of descending again. The water is colder, the light dimmer, and as you reach the last visible step, a shape waits in the darkness beyond. It does not move, but you feel its gaze through the water, heavy and patient, as if it has been waiting for someone to finally come home. You sit alone now, far from deserts, jungles, and oceans, but the echoes of your journey refuse to leave. Behind your closed eyes, the memories pulse like embers, the void that swallowed your voice in the Great Pyramid, the whisper curling through Tutankhamun's tomb, the stone gates that trembled in the Bolivian wind. You remember the hum in Malta, the spiral of the Phaistos Disc, the silent spheres of Costa Rica. Each site was real, each artifact exists. And yet the things you felt, drafts in sealed chambers, voices in empty tunnels, vibrations in stone, belong to a space between history and something else. You start to wonder if you ever truly left. Your phone lies face down on the desk. A faint reflection shivers across the black screen, and for a heartbeat you think you see a symbol you do not know, glowing faintly, gone when you blink. The room is quiet, but it feels full, as if the weight of the world's oldest memories has followed you home. Some truths are buried by time, some are buried on purpose. If you ever saw a door in the darkness, one that no one else could see, would you open it? And if you already did, would you even know what stepped through with you?